We're talking with Zeeland School Superintendent Cal DeKuiper. You and other superintendents across the state probably keeping a close eye and ear of what's going on in Lansing as Governor Snyder presented his budget and his proposals, and certainly education wants to get their piece of the pie, but it has not been as easy. Does it look easier this year, or can nothing be assumed at this point right now?
Well, I think education is at least back in the scope of things looked at, and I'm appreciative of that. So yeah, I think we can at least plan on some type of help. Where in the past we really went into this time of the year and we anticipated no help. In fact, we've probably handled the last 3 budgets assuming zeros. And this year, we think we can plan ahead, at least with some type of a help. It used to be so much easier to do. The budget's gotten so complicated that there are segments here and segments there. It's more difficult to try to analyze the whole thing. But we are hearing good things coming out of Lansing.
But the other thing is, yeah, it's a little bit more complicated trying to put everything together. But at least you have an idea by June the 1st what you're going to get. Not have to wait until
That's a great point.
October.
That is a very fair point, and you are exactly right. It used to be we had to build a budget by July 1, and we didn't really know what kind of dollars were coming in often until October, and that was very difficult. So at least now we know right where we are. We can try to build budgets on schedules.
Is it still early, and I'm going to draw upon your past experience north of here before you came over to Zeeland. Is it still too early to say we're back to where we were before the drastic cuts of the late 2000s?
Yeah, no, it's not. We know, actually. What's difficult is there's kind of different pots of dollars now. And the 2 big ones to me are per pupil and the retirement system. And that's kind of a whole nother deal. But in the per pupil, we are funded today equal to what we were in 2006. So we're right in between 5.6 and 6.7. So really what we're recovering from is what was the resetting, and I don't know that was all bad. In 2011-12, schools lost $470 per student. And in the whole budget, that was usually around a 6% cut, which was a pretty heavy cut. Now, I know Michigan was struggling, and schools had to help their share and be part of that recovery together. And, when there's only so many dollars to go around, people have to make decisions. So, I don't try to look back and say good, bad, or otherwise. I just know I'm trying to recover from that difficulty.
Not only the funding, the income coming in, but also spending and what is allocated. You touched upon it very briefly, Cal DeKuiper.
Yeah.
The budget, the pension situation.
Yeah, and it kind of here's what's happened. No real fault. It's just kind of a bad set of circumstances. But the retirement system was in place for, a long time, and everybody was paying in, and as people retired, they drew out of that fund. Well, through adding charter schools and some cyber schools and through almost kind of what feels like a mandated privatization, every time you do any of those 3 things, you take people out of the system that are paying into it. So you still have people drawing from the system, but there is no dollars being put back in. So charter schools, cyber schools, privatized programs do not pay in. And then you had the market crash. Well, so the fund that paid those retirement funds was pretty depleted. That just doesn't work. And so whose fault is that, and who needs to make that up? Well, right now those dollars are being charged to schools, and I know through the legislature and the governor's office, they're oftentimes putting dollars into that. So it's just a bad system. Not a bad system, it's a bad setup right now. So right now we pay somewhere between 20 and 25% of our total salaries towards the retirement system. So for every $100 in payroll, we send $25 back to the retirement system. That's a big number. And until that retirement system gets kind of figured back out, that's really our biggest drain.
We're talking with Zeeland School Superintendent Calvin DeKuiper. And Cal, the other topic I want to touch base with you on is a little bit more seasonal. No pun intended about that.
Sure.
The number of snow days that's been experienced not only here in West Michigan, which is normal, but now the other side of the state is feeling what we normally feel with the snowfall count. And there's been some guidance from the state education department saying that you cannot make up those days missed by adding extra hours. You got to put them in the classroom for extra
Sure.
days. And yet the legislature's got a bill that's being moved forward to try to allow districts to put on those extra minutes. Put you guys sort of in a bind. You have to follow what the state education department says, but yet you know that you'll be under some pressure to change things if
Sure.
this bill becomes law, say in about 6 weeks.
Yeah. And from what I do, I still always hope for local control, where we make some decisions locally rather than having almost everything either mandated or described or prescribed for us. And not every district is the same. So, for us, right at the moment, we have 2 buildings of the 11 that actually are behind. So we're at 7 school days, but we have plenty of hours in our day, so we're really not over in hours. We're in good shape. So how do I handle that when I've only got a couple of buildings? Well, I would rather extend a day in a couple of buildings and run an entire district for another day. And part of it is we have budgets built, and you have some serious expense when you're running the whole system for another full day rather than a little bit. Now, if you're 2-3 days over, absolutely we make more educational progress on a full school day than we do by adding a few minutes at the end of a day. In some ways, that almost sounds a little silly, doesn't it? So I can see it both ways.
Also, I could see our friends in the tourism industry lobby coming in
Absolutely.
on this too.
You bet.
And it does, but it also really wreaks havoc on scheduling for the district, because if you knew, say in September, you go over X amount of snow days, you've got to make it up at the end.
Yeah.
You can do that. It's not like, well, this is April, and all of a sudden, hey, you don't have to make them up at the end, and you have to make the last minute change.
Well, and that's a good point. And we try to really, we have some with the weekend coming up as a 4-day weekend, and we know many people had plans in those, so we just don't touch those. Or to add a day, we're going to come back early a day from spring break. We know a lot of people have plans, and so we're not going to try to disrupt those things. We know if we add them in, we might have a professional development day we would go to school, or we plan to end them at the end of the year. So I've had a lot of phone calls. Hey, does this mean we're going to go to school this Friday? I've got plane tickets. I've got a bus route. I'm going to see Grandma on Thursday. No, we don't change those. And the rules often change. So, and that's not a negative. It's just another group of people have a new idea. So some years you're given a little kind of a governor's reprieve, and some years not. So we typically don't make decisions until after April 1st.
One final thing, and sort of summarize a little bit of what you just said, Cal. The issue of snow days is not necessarily one of having kids in the classroom or having parents having to reschedule their vacation time. It is really more than anything else 2 things. 1, monetary, budget. It's maybe cheaper to run a district longer. And 2, it gets back to a long-standing debate, Cal, about local control versus statewide control.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And then the third part of that is, you are exactly right, and the third part is education. That's why we're here. So really, what's best for teaching students? And add 4 minutes at the end of a school day versus when we're trying to get a curriculum in and we lose 7 full days of instruction. So our teachers are trying to figure all that out now too. So that's all pretty difficult. But I really believe in local control. You might have a community here, a community there that struggles, or a school system that's in some difficulty, so you put a new set of rules in to help a school system. But by and large, a huge majority of schools are very strong and well run. And so let that local community make the decisions that they think is best for that community. And if one is a tourist industry on this side of the state versus one in another spot that is not, maybe they want to do things a little bit differently. So I often say the job of a superintendent, in really one sentence, is to take the state and federal dollars that are given to you to accomplish the state and federal mandates that you have to cover in the most efficient way. And it kind of feels that way sometimes. So I am all favor for local control, and let me figure it out with my school.